Hey everybody, it's just me again. Hope all your toothers are having a good Thursday. So I thought about titling this one the coming out party, but that's not exactly what I'm after. I just started sending the podcast to people, and I'm establishing more social media populations. Um, no, what is that? I'm joining more social medias. I don't know. You'll start seeing the donkey in more places. Facebook and X, and I actually have an idea about an Instagram account, which I will have to play with. But I'm a little pissed with Facebook already. I didn't realize that they were monitoring activity to determine if you're a bot. So I started to upload links to the podcast, the different shows to Facebook. Like, it'd be good to have all this stuff kind of centralized in one spot. I mean, I'll probably post links to Stupid X, and there's another social media place called Mastodon, which it's definitely a lot smaller in terms of its community, but I don't know, I enjoy it. Just some of the weird stuff I found. I'm pretty sure it's not one of those right-wing ones either, like Rumble or I don't know, wearenazis.com. Well, whatever the right wing is doing for social media. Oh, the Truth Social, the one that's truly running out of money. It's ridiculous. People are going to realize that everything that man touches turns to nothing. Anyway, so in anyway, I feel like those are going to be on my epitaph. But yeah, I'm trying to just get more out there. I don't know that I will be able to pump out material at a good scheduled pace, but if I could do it with some amount of constancy, if maybe not consistency, right? I mean, one of the things that some of you who've been following me or who know me, I suppose know me more than follow me, but I've got the blog, I made some entries, I was pretty excited, and then nothing for a year. I'm not sure. Many months, and the podcast itself had a couple episodes and then trailed off. And a lot of that just comes out of work stress and life stress and just the general depression and anxiety that I'm lucky enough to be plagued with. But I don't know. I think like the mental breakdowns that I had last week, I'm starting to care more about doing something than dwelling on not doing something. Right? I mean, I mentioned yesterday, I mentioned it recently about the writing, how I wanted to be a writer, and how, honestly, I had story ideas. For a while, I thought I had several novels in my head. I thought I had enough material to build out a whole world and create a lot of material. And life got in the way, and I shut that part of my brain down. I tried to go after it, and I may still dabble here and there with some stuff, but that's not. I don't know that that's who I am anymore. I think there is a sense of having dreams and having to set dreams aside for a time, or losing them entirely. Right? We have the things that we wish we could do, and there are things that we're able to do, and the things that kind of reality lets us do. You put all of those elements together to come up with what's done, right? What are you doing? So I'm just trying to shift some of my focus. I hope it keeps. I have a terrible issue with consistency, especially if something becomes a roadblock. I mean, it's entirely possible I get out there and I start getting a lot of hate. Like, is this worth it? But I don't know. Depends on the hate, I suppose. I mean, if I'm wrong about something, yeah, I'll probably be okay. Like I said before, I would rather be corrected. And sometimes that just takes humility. It takes the time to kind of look at some of the responses that you may receive. But I also have watched enough YouTubers that talk about don't read the comment section, or some people will reply to comments until they get to a certain subscription base, and then it becomes impossible to manage that. So that's when they start doing things like the Patreons, and especially for videos, they'll do the super chat, which is people pay a certain amount of money to, get your attention, basically. Which, again, I get, right? Because it's a job. It's become a job for a number of people. And some people, it's more lucrative than others, but it opens up other possibilities for them. So, we'll see. I don't know. I'm not eyeballing this as a career path. I keep saying that, and I'll keep saying that the situation over in Israel is a genocide. It's an apartheid state. I have no problem repeating certain things. Oh, so yeah. So the Facebook thing, I totally lost track of that. The Facebook thing was annoying because I was posting. I posted links to all the episodes of the podcast, and then I was like, well, I have the blog too. Maybe I should post those too. But they'll be out of order if I do it incorrectly. And I had this plan of leveraging some kind of software that would update all the various places at once. There's cost to that, and I'm not willing to bear. So I'll end up doing it manually. So my thought was I'll delete these entries. I'll go back. I'll start the blog posts, and then I'll start adding podcasts, and I'll alternate based on date, right? Date published sort of thing. So I put up the 5, 6, 7, 8 episodes that existed, and then I took them down, and then I tried to put in one of the blog posts, and Facebook said, "Hey, no, you can't do that. We're not sure who you are or what you're up to, but we take great pains into making sure you're not trying to spam the community." First of all, nobody's following me, right? I mean, I got a couple now, but at the time, it wasn't a thing. So they give you opportunities, they give you methods to plead your case, but I have no idea how long it'll take. I have no idea how long any of this will take. So annoyingly, I'm worried. I'm worried that it's gonna be a problem. I was looking up the error online, and some people had indicated that once this becomes a real issue going forward. Somebody said they had an account for 12 years that ended up becoming blocked entirely by Facebook because he started running into this issue. So I don't know. I may end up having to create a new page on Facebook, which is irritating because they've already told people to go to that one. It's just a nightmare. So I don't know. Figure something out. I shouldn't expect it to be an issue. Like, oh, everything's great. I'll let people know. I'll clean this thing up. Oh, I've broken it. That's great. Yay, day one, broken. So I'm excited as to the possibilities of at least having some semblance of creativity rather than dwelling on the need to be perfect about a writing style. I can kind of just wing some of this. I do want to get back to something longer form with the books. I do want to get through my free will stuff because I really want to dive into my conceptions of morality and ethics because I think that's another interesting topic. But there's things in the way, and commenting or complaining about what other people are doing is not. There are people that do that kind of exclusively. There's a channel I found recently that they look at both sides of the aisle, right? Commentators on both sides of the aisle, and they push on all of them. They really don't care. But it's reactionary. It's I don't know. Sometimes it feels childish to me to strictly spend your time focusing on that. But it works. People want to see that stuff. People are interested. I'm watching them, right? So I don't know what I'm complaining about. I think that they provide some insight that I wouldn't have had, like the whole Anna Kasparian thing. I mean, it's a group that I stumbled upon because of the Anna Kasparian thing. It turns out they've been doing this for a while with a bunch of different people and places, and so their insight is compelling. But by and large, I don't know. It just seems like I prefer the John Oliver's, some more news guys, stuff that provides more information, and maybe less vitriol. Simon Dan, Emma Thorne, Deidre Miller. She's another one I'm pretty hooked to. I'll probably write up a blog post about those so that people can just get a handle on what I'm talking about. if they're at all interested. I don't know that I totally care. But I mean, I am definitely going to complain about certain people with specificity because I think they're uh, dangerous. They're definitely on the side of whatever they can do to rile people up and get paid. Right? People are definitely interested in this identity politics, this uh, this us versus them mentalities. This it's things are a little unusual, so we should definitely just hate it and talk about why we hate it. And if we're challenged, we shouldn't actually provide a whole lot of context about why we're complaining. We should just ask questions, and not even good questions. Very, very annoying, simplistic questions. Like I understand their point, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to trap people. They're not. They're not trying to engage or learn anything. They're not trying to get a better understanding or a better handle on the topic. They just want to rile people up. They want to make people look stupid because they're going to ask a question that is not. It's not just simple. So I will bring them up, and I will probably bring up religious zealotry. I think those people are also wildly dangerous. I think that people preaching the prosperity gospel, the Joyce Myers, the Kenneth Copelands. I think Austeen's one of them too. Definitely Jim Baker and Bob Tilton and a couple of these other yahoos whose names I can't think of off the top of my head. Right, where it's keep giving me money. It'll be like giving the money to God, and then you will prosper. Meanwhile, I'm buying jets. Creflo Dollar comes. Actually, that reminded me of Creflo Dollar. There's this other guy. He talks about there's a clip of him talking about he's doing a preaching, right? He's preaching a sermon. He talks about how he had enough cash to buy a plane, and then he turned around and was able to buy another plane. And then he tells the people to, you should rejoice in my blessings. So then the people started to clap. Like, what are you doing? What is going on? So there's a lot of con artistry in religious circles of various types that bother me. And I end up seeing more random clips of, Muslim clerics saying reprehensible things about women and about violence. And it worries me that it's a more popular group and there's more of this interest in creating some type of religious fascism states. Whether we claim in America it's Christo-fascist, it's not. Half of the stuff that the people actually stand for, Christ would be like, what? Can I strike you down like the fig tree? I feel like the fruit you're producing is garbage. It's absolute garbage. So a lot of that goes back to greed. And a lot of that goes back to just my kind of general discussion around ignorance and willful ignorance. I think there are plenty of people that they want to be left alone. They want to belong. They want to be told things are going to be okay. And they want to focus on that. They want to hold on to that hope without really kind of going through it, without really tackling everything that has to happen, in order to get better, in order to get things where you actually want them to be. At a super generic level, I see these memes online of how, people who follow Christ are happy and people who are atheists are not. It's like I started being suicidal at 10, and I grew up in a pretty religious household. So that's not, that's reductionist nonsense. I think it works for people because it gives them that hope, something to think about, something to cling to, and to feel a certain amount of justification that the things that they're doing are okay and are good and will ultimately bless them. And there are definitely people that feel that it's still put in the world. They still realize that, well, I can't, I'm not a Christian Scientist. I'm not going to skip going to a doctor. I'm not going to just sit on my heels and say, well, God will bless me and not put in effort. Right? I don't want to lump everybody to a certain label, but I do tend to talk about the lumps related to a particular label more so than the people who are not as strict, not as, my whole identification is, what was that? There was that one lady running for some office, and her thing was Jesus, babies, and guns, right? Like that's a weird, it's a weird set of metrics, or a weird set of, primary points that people should think about when they think about you. I love Jesus. I'm pro babies and I'm pro guns. Cool. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Remind me where Jesus was all about shooting people. I mean, not for nothing. The dude knew he was going to be crucified. You know what he did? He stayed. Right. Your very example that you cling to and you preach about to people, welcomed. Well, I'm not welcome, but I mean, well, to some extent, if you want to break it down like a petty, he wasn't. Depending on the Gospels you read, I realize I'm rambling now. I'm trying to remember all the specific details, because not all of the Gospels are aligned on Christ's reaction to this I have to die for everybody event. Take this cup for me, but also it is finished, right? There's just some discrepancies on, was he just all the way into it, or was he kind of like, oh, this sucks? And I know generically people are going to tell me about, he sweat blood in the Garden of Gethsemane over the stress of it. But again, this goes back to a certain amount of textual criticism and how much we parse out from the different Gospels versus just lumping them all together as one homogenized experience, right? It's not quite that simple. I'm coming up to the bridge again. Yeah, and for people that are curious, there is construction going on. The lane isn't just blocked for no reason at all. Just they had the other side of the bridge blocked up. They had the right lane blocked off for a while, and now it's the left lane. And I think people are confused, even though they've changed the signs, which is what caught my attention. Like, isn't it the right lane? Like, why do they say it's the left lane? Oh, because they're done with the right lane. That makes sense. So that's a big truck. Yeah, doing this while I drive is entertaining. But yeah, there are a lot of people out there that preach hate, and those are the ones I'm typically familiar with at this point. Bunch because of some of the people I follow, they end up coming up in the conversation, or some of the people I used to follow that I don't really anymore. I learned a lot watching their material, their stuff. I got tired of some of their specific sentiments, but that's a different talking point. And I don't know. I think having a personal kind of philosophy is not necessarily a problem if you find that a certain religion gives you some of that peace of mind and some of that hope that you need, and you're not being a dick to other people, right? You're not trying to shove that belief system down their throats. You're not trying to halt all abortions and subjugate women in the various ways that we're doing it already, and we've gone back to doing it thanks to dropping Roe v. Wade off a cliff. I'm probably not going to bother too much with you necessarily. I may challenge certain specific ideas, but I'm not going to come out swinging, as it were. But these other groups, these other people, these hate preachers. If you ever really want to see a perfect example of the worst of the worst as far as preachers go, check out Steven Anderson. If you really want to see some of what I'm talking about and some of what I've been observing of late, it'll give you an idea where a lot of my cynicism is coming from. But I am trying to temper it, because it's not not all Christians, not all believers. There are. I mean, I've worked with Muslims. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with kind of how they're existing, right? They're not trying to blow people up. It's just, look, not for nothing, right? It's a culture that these people grew up in, right? The westernized versions of Christianity is a culture we grew up in. If you lived somewhere else, if you grew up somewhere else, you would find that religion, your culture. It's what you know. So it's difficult for me 100% to just blame the people that are following something, especially if it's all they got. Right? I think I talked about how, with Hamas, the Palestinians, I'm air quoting the Palestinians, they voted in Hamas because at the time Hamas claimed they were a moderate political group and they wanted to try to help the Palestinian people be able to, exist in a way better than the apartheid state they were living in. And they essentially lied to everybody's faces, and they are warmongering terrorists. So, that's why I keep bringing up the Trump thing. He's not out to help anybody but himself and the people that will continue to help him, right? So he's not out here for you. And I don't want to suggest that the Harris Walz ticket is necessarily on your side either, but they're more on your side than they are than Trump is, which is not a high bar, admittedly. But she's still going to continue policies that I'm opposed to. She's still going to support the genocide and apartheid state that is Israel, right? Because apparently you can knock what Israel is up to and get canceled, as it were. People are. I talk about Jessie Gender, right? She was trying to explain about what's really going on, and got a lot of hate from her own people, and was going to lose money from it. So she had to tell a different story. That's just one example. I don't rely on listeners to pay me to ramble, and I'm not going to change my tune about what's going on over there. It's just there's too much evidence to support that reality. And hey, if I find out that I'm completely wrong about all of it, I'll change. I'll apologize. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem being proven incorrect, but it's got to be proven incorrect, right? I need a lot in some respects, right? I need some evidence that I can work with, and not just, oh, well, Newsmax said this. Yeah, well, those guys are liars. They're bigger liars than Fox. They're part of why Newsmax and OAN exists is because Fox wasn't kneeling in front of Trump as much. They still were, but it wasn't as much. So, a bunch of people on the right said that Fox was the enemy now, and they'd gone too left, and it's insane to me. This is all insane to me. It's just dipshit hero worship and this religious fervor that us versus them. It's nonsensical. Meanwhile, the rich keep getting richer, right? The filthiest, the richest people on the planet have made more money since COVID. I forget the stat. They made a ton of money during COVID while people were suffering and dying. Trump ran up the national debt by $7 trillion during his tenure. I doubt Harris will resolve that in a meaningful way. Maybe, but I don't want to hope for that. But I do, at the very least, believe that ticket will still support democracy, will still support the will-ish of the people. The system itself needs a lot of work. Lobbying is a problem. I'll probably keep bringing that up too. I'm sure I have already. And corruption used to be something you hid, and we still have corruption separately from lobbying, which to me is corruption. So I don't know. I feel like we keep pushing the bar further away from reality. We'll just redefine it. I understand language evolves, but the heart of the thing is you're still getting money from somebody because of your privileged position in order to provide them something that they would not necessarily otherwise get. One of the John Oliver shows was talking about online gambling, sports betting, and how a lot of those sites, they try to tell you it's sports entertainment and it's a game of skill. And somebody asked, Joe Namath asked him about, what his thoughts were on some of these services, the DraftKings and the other sports book sites, saying that they're just entertainment, or they're there for skill and they're not for gambling. He said, well, do you have to put money up to play it? Uh-huh. And if the outcome happens that you wanted, happens, and you get paid for it, right? Yeah, it's like that's gambling. Call it what you want. It's still gambling. When you do a football pool or March Madness pool at work, that's still gambling. So for him, it's pretty straightforward. But it requires skill, sure, but the skill required if you really want to make it work is insane. They talked about a former poker player who had figured out how to build out algorithms that included, down to what's the win condition, kind of hour by hour, where the game is being played, right? That's trying to manage the level of variables and chaos. So, we keep finding people that are trying to redefine things so that it benefits them at the expense of others, right? It's the, I made a comment the other day about how I don't think you can have a really ethical billionaire, moral billionaire, because you cannot get that much money without people being exploited somewhere in the process. And to deny that happens, it's just denying reality, right? I know, like, The Rock is a billionaire, right? And he's made a lot of movies. He's done a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. He's definitely busted his hump. He does it every day. However, if you look more into it, and I have to look a little deeper, but the surface level understanding that I have about it is, he's worked on contracts to where he gets a bigger chunk of the pie, not just out of movies, but on other deals that he's working on, other things that he does, and it's at kind of the expense of others. And on the flip side of that, you look at a guy like Keanu Reeves, who got millions of dollars for The Matrix, and he gave money to the stunt team, right? He bought the motorcycles. He's not, he doesn't have that. He's had a rough go of it. Honestly, if you learn anything about his history, you'll appreciate too how good a dude he really is. But to be able to kind of share that wealth with people is nice, right? And I know I talked about, like, the J.K. Rowling thing. She did give a lot of money to different charities, but charities that still supported kind of her stance on certain areas, right? So it's like, oh, she looks good from the outside, but if you dig into it, you start to understand that there are discrepancies. There is a reality that has to be taken into account. Right, like the Steven Anderson guy that I mentioned earlier, that I wouldn't watch it with the kids around, but just say that he's a preacher, like, oh, he's a Christian, he's preaching the Bible. Okay, yeah. Do you like the way he's preaching it? Tell me that. Go watch him, and tell me you like the idea that you're labeled the same as that guy. Part of my labels to me are so odd. I think there are certain characteristics you can describe, like I'm, overweight, I wear glasses, right? I got the no teeth going on, I got diabetes. Like, that's a different kind of labeling. I don't identify as someone with diabetes. I just happen to have it, right? It's an element of what we are. It's a piece of us. It's not the whole thing. We're not that whole thing, that whole one thing. We're a whole bunch of other things. And sometimes we have to look at all the things. Hence the tirade about, who you look up to. Anyway, I'm here now, so I may do more after, but for now I think we're good.